How's it going, everybody? Today we're going to be pruning our fruit trees. It is March 13th and the snow has basically melted everywhere. So I'm going to get out here before the trees break dormancy and give them a good haircut. The tree I've got right beside me here is a Macintosh apple tree. We have 4 apple trees, a peach tree, and a plum tree in this particular orchard. And then we have 3 cherry trees up in our front orchard. I'm going to be using the same pruning techniques on all varieties of these trees. When you first start out with fruit trees, pruning can be a daunting task. I remember when I started, it was pretty scary, like cutting away 30% of your tree. You feel like you're gonna kill it or you're not gonna get any fruit. But the amazing thing is, sometimes the more you cut back, the healthier the tree is and the more fruit it produces. By pruning your fruit tree, you are allowing more airflow and sunlight to enter the canopy. It spreads things out so you don't have rubbing. So by pruning, you're actually going to increase your harvest and the quality of your harvest at the end of the season, and ensure that your tree is healthy for many, many years to come. I'm going to walk through kind of the basics on pruning, so hopefully if you're new at this, ease your mind a little bit and give you some guidance on what to do. This Macintosh tree that I'm going to trim is between 3 and 4 years old. Hasn't had any disease issues and has a very nice shape to it. So I hope to maintain that shape, but thin it out and cut it down a little bit shorter for easier management. I've got some disinfectant wipes here. You can use rubbing alcohol as well. Just dunk it in a little dish of rubbing alcohol and let it sit there for about 30 seconds. But it's a good idea to clean your shears to prevent the spread of any disease or bacteria that might be on them. And definitely, when you finish up a tree, disinfect them again before you move to the next tree to prevent the spread of disease. All right, those are good and soaked. We'll just let these air dry. So the first thing you want to do is take a good walk around your tree and inspect for the 3 Ds, which are dead, damaged, or diseased. Fortunately, I looked over this tree already. I see none of those 3. Everything looks healthy. I don't see any damage on it, and I don't see any disease either. Should you find that you have any dead, damaged, or diseased wood, we would start pruning there. Take all that stuff out of there, because there's nothing good that's going to come of dead, damaged, or diseased wood. So start by pruning that off your tree first. I currently don't have any trees that have any shoots, any sprouts coming up from the trunk of the tree. If you get any shoots coming out of the tree below the scion, coming out of that root stock, it's not the same thing as this. It's whatever that root stock was to begin with. So you want to cut those out and make sure, if you have mulch around your tree, which I suggest you do, that the mulch isn't touching the base of the tree, because that can harbor moisture and cause rot and disease. So it's a good idea just to dig down a little bit and make sure there's good airflow around the trunk of your tree. The next step I like to take is to go through and thin out the tree. First, I will look for any branches that are crossing one another that are going to potentially cause a rubbing issue, which will open up the tree to disease. So for instance, this branch right here comes out and across and it rubs. It goes right between the fork on this branch. We don't want that. This eventually will grow and rub, and that'll open up the tree to disease or infection right there. So what I'm going to do is come through and cut this branch off right down to the base here. Leave a little bit of a nub right above this collar here. We'll make a cut right here. Make sure that your shears are nice and sharp too. And there you go. Having a nice clean cut like that will allow the tree to heal much quicker. Okay, now that I've gone through and taken care of any branches that are crossing one another, we want to trim out branches that are growing up and into the center of the canopy. This branch, for instance, is going up inside the tree. We want the tree to grow out and then up and form a nice vase, or vase, depending on how you pronounce it. Branches that grow up in the center of the tree like this will not be able to support much weight based on the way that they're growing, and they also reduce the amount of sunlight and airflow inside the canopy of the tree, which will open the tree up to disease and bacteria growth. Alright, I think I'm pretty happy with where this tree is at. I thinned out a fair amount. You can trim up to 30% of your tree back. I did a lot of heading cuts last year as an experiment. For instance, this would be a heading cut here. So you can see this little nub right on top of the branch here. I cut the end of the branch off, which causes the tree to send shoots out on the next buds below that cut point, so it can grow out like that. So I did a fair amount of heading cuts on here, and it sent a lot of long shoots out. Chickens are getting a little rowdy. So yeah, I don't know. I don't want to cut too much more off. I'm happy with how this tree's looking. I think I'm gonna go on to the next one. There's always next year to prune back more. You can actually prune throughout the season too if you need to. It's just best to make most of your cuts when the tree is breaking dormancy, just before the tree breaks dormancy. All right, moving on to the next tree. This one is a Honeycrisp apple tree. So, disinfect your equipment before starting the next pruning cuts. My trees are still young enough that I can get by with pruning just with these little handheld shears here. But if your trees are a bit older or have been left to grow wild for a few seasons, you might need loppers to get some bigger diameter branches cut. You could also use a pruning saw, which is a hook-shaped saw, very sharp, and you can use that to cut your branches as well. Alright, while these are drying, you might have noticed that I'm collecting all of my cut wood. In case some of this cut wood should harbor disease, it's a good idea to collect it instead of leaving it laying around the base of your tree where it could reintroduce itself to the tree this growing season. So I collect all my cuts, and then I will end up burning them to get rid of any potential disease. Alright, I'm going to go through and follow the same steps I used on the Macintosh to prune this tree. There is a little bit of a science behind pruning, but it's more of an art form. Just look at your tree, whatever feels out of place, not right, trim it up, get it to where you're happy. Trust me, you're not going to hurt your tree. You can trim quite a bit back and your tree will be perfectly fine. It's going to put a lot of new growth out. Every cut you make releases a hormone inside the tree telling it, hey, we've been hurt, we need to put more growth out. So by pruning the tree, you're encouraging it to grow, put on new growth, new wood, healthy wood, and set a healthier crop of fruit for you that season. This is our plum tree, which has a ton of vertical growth coming out of the top of it. I'm going to trim all those back, do a lot of heading cuts on those, and reduce the overall height of this tree. There are plenty of other videos out there on YouTube on how to prune trees, most of them with more information than I shared, so feel free to check those out. But really, you're doing more harm to your tree by not coming out and just giving it a light pruning. This is our peach tree. It's an Alberta peach tree. We actually harvested a handful of peaches from this tree last year. This and our cherry trees are the only trees to produce for us so far. Hopefully this year everything kicks into gear and starts providing some fruit for us. Our peach tree has had a canker on its trunk here, running up the main portion of the tree to about here. It's had that for a couple of years now, and I'm just letting nature take its course. It doesn't appear to be insect damage, because there'd be frass, or which is basically little sawdust pieces from borers going into the tree stuck in the sap. And I don't see any of that. I believe this is just, it's not mechanical injury either. I didn't injure this tree. I believe it's just related to stress, weather conditions, the freezing and thawing caused a wound, and it's just grown over time. This may or may not be life-threatening to the tree, which is kind of what I'm just letting nature do, and we'll find out. But this tree overall has been very healthy and provided some great fruit for us last year. It looks awesome right now even. I'm hoping we get another good harvest off this tree this year. And I'll just keep an eye on that canker, and we'll see what happens. If anybody has any information or advice on what to do with that though, let me know. I'm just kind of learning as I go. But when in doubt, just let Mother Nature do her thing. Welcome to the cherry and blueberry orchard. I'm going to go through and prune these trees now. Our blueberries are so little yet that we don't have to worry about pruning them. I don't know if it's because of the age of my cherry trees, but I never seem to have to prune very much off these trees. They're pretty thin and open to begin with. So this is what I ended up pruning off of all of our fruit trees. I'm gonna take all this and throw it in the burn pit. I hope you learned a little something about pruning fruit trees. As mentioned, if you're looking for a little bit more information, there's plenty of videos out there. Go ahead and do some research on that yourself. I'll probably put together a pruning video on our blackberries, raspberries, and grapevines as well, as pruning those are a little bit different than the fruit trees. I'm learning a lot of this myself as I go. YouTube is a huge resource. I've learned almost everything that I do here from YouTube. I hope everyone's getting out and enjoying the spring weather. Really excited for the coming growing season. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.